All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the National Sports Forum Customer Sales and Retention Breakout Panel Session. My name is Drew Praster. I'm the Vice President of Ticket Sales and Service for the Charlotte Hornets. And today we're going to talk about membership platforms and especially how they've evolved over the last 2 years and the potential future of these popular programs that we all know and love. Now, I am honored to be joined by an absolute all-star panel today. I'll give them I'll give them a quick introduction, but then let them introduce themselves to you all a little bit more. But excited to welcome Abbey Mathis, Vice President of Suites and Premium Sales and Service for the Sacramento Kings, Brian Jemison, the Director of Client Services for the Detroit Tigers, and Mike Taylor, Associate Vice President of Team Marketing and Business Operations for the NBA. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us. Why don't we go around the horn and let you all just give everybody a quick background on yourself and your current role. Abbey, if you want to start us off.
Sure. Thanks, Drew. Again, very happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. So I've been in the industry for about a little over 14 years. I started in Seattle with the Seattle Sonics and Seattle Storm. And then shortly after, transitioned down to Oklahoma City and was a part of the Oklahoma City Thunder for about 4 years in their service and retention department. And then after 4 years, made my way over to Cleveland and spent almost 9 years with the Cavaliers. And then from there, I have made my way back west to Sacramento now. It's been a little over a year, I think a year and a month now. But I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, I'm overseeing all of premium suite sales and service.
Awesome. Well, Abbey, thanks for joining us today. Why don't we kick it over to Brian up in rainy Detroit today, unfortunately. Brian, welcome.
Thanks, Drew. No, pleasure to be here. So Brian Jemison, Director of Client Service here with the Detroit Tigers. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, which is crazy to me to say. But started my career actually working with an internship with the Cincinnati Bengals and had an opportunity to work with the Detroit Pistons in the Palace of Auburn Hills, where they also had the Detroit Shock, two outdoor amphitheaters, also all the events that happened at the Palace at the time. Had an opportunity to work with the New Jersey Nets, help them move over to Brooklyn and the Barclays Center, so the Brooklyn Nets. Quick stop at IMG Learfield, working with Boston College. Worked with Legends and OUE Skyspace LA, which is an attraction there. And then had an opportunity to work with the Miami Marlins for about 4 or 5 years. And then just got here to Detroit, similar to Abbey, about 14 months ago.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, Brian. And I'm not sure what city you're in this week, Mike, but I'll kick it over to you to give us a quick introduction. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate it. I'm in New York City, which you might be able to tell when a fire truck goes down the street at the worst time. But pleasure to be here, Mike Taylor. This is my 14th season within the NBA family. Started my career with the Chicago Bulls as a sales intern. Spent some time with the Atlanta Hawks and Atlanta Thrashers, RIP to the Thrashers, and spent 5 years with the hometown team, the Detroit Pistons, where I was in sales and made the transition over to leadership before coming to the NBA 5 years ago in Teambo. So helping kind of lead our ticketing strategy across the NBA, G League, and W. And then recently moving over to the NBA account management side, where I have a few teams that I am the account manager for. So looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, again, thanks everybody for joining us today. Welcome to the panel. We have a wealth of experience here today to talk about this subject. So if you're all ready, we're gonna jump right in. I want to kind of focus on two areas of membership platforms, kind of the current state of these programs and how they've progressed during the pandemic. And then second, what the future really holds for membership platforms, since they've been around for a little while. And most teams, I would say, have some form of platform program within their benefit structure to their ticket packages. And, obviously these last 2 years have had a massive impact on our industry. Everyone knows that. But, can you talk through any changes that you all made at your teams, during this time where we were virtual and still virtual in some capacity and a lot of capacities, to really continue to engage with your members while we were maybe not playing or in a reduced fan capacity, and just kind of what you did to really engage with members there. And Abbey, if we want to start with you as well again.
Sure. I would say, one of the great things about having the virtual connectivity is getting very creative with the basketball side. And we did a lot of, and I'm going to go back to Cleveland real quick, if that's okay, being that I'm still learning here and a year into the Kings. But creating like personalized, like cameo videos, doing virtual events with our partners like Bacardi, trying to like engage again virtually, but also understanding that the connectivity was important. So maybe it's more of a one-on-one through Teams or Zoom. Gifting, we did a lot of, and we do here at the Kings as well, like gifting, whether or not you're having that one-on-one personal interaction with them, sending them out, dropping them off outside the office or outside the home, just saying, hey, we're still here. Maybe we can't physically touch and interact, but those were, I think, the biggest points. It was obviously very unique, unlike anything I think any of us could have predicted, right? So it talk about getting comfortable being uncomfortable. The whole pandemic really forced us to get creative in that way. And as we talk eventually here on the panel about technology, I think it really forced us to really engage and figure out what tech programs through fan engagement really were able to be utilized.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll definitely touch on that here in a bit. But Brian, I think it kind of the pandemic started right when you all were getting ready to start your season, if I remember correctly. I think it was still spring training. So you obviously all were in a different position than us in the NBA, where we only had about 10 games left and we're getting ready to go into the playoffs. But you all were just getting ready to start your season. So how did that kind of impact you? And obviously, same question here to you. Any changes or things that you all did to really continue that engagement?
Yeah, I think as you alluded to, we were about to kick off our season, so we were ready to go. Money's in, seats are out. We're ready to invite people into the ballpark. But what happened was, for us, I think we learned is that we had to pivot right away. Another big thing, and Abby was talking about this, I think what we learned is virtual is a way we can still communicate with folks. And I think we've also learned that's here to stay. And I think it's a sustainable model that we can put into our touch point process. So that's something we're going to continue to kind of lean into and figure out unique ways to do it. Yes, we've had people here at the ballpark, but there's also those folks that are not necessarily need to be in person, but we can do things from a virtual setting. A couple things we did was interact with the players and get them involved. They were doing hitting instructions, coaching. We got them involved as well, where they could do it from their home versus having to come out here. We're able to do a Q&A, which we're doing right now, virtually, where they could ask questions and get access to players where they typically wouldn't have access to. So I think just over the time that we've been doing all this virtual and throughout the pandemic, we've learned virtual is something that's sustainable. I think it also challenged us to make sure we knew our clients on a deeper level than just on a surface level. Hey, this is Bob Smith, comes back every year, spends $10,000 with me. We're good, good handshake. But I think this is hey, how's Bob doing? How's Bob's family? How's Bob's business? And had us be more intentional with our questions and be more genuine and authentic with folks versus just being very surface level. So those are some of the things I think coming out of the pandemic where we will be able to continue to utilize. And like I said, this is going to be sustainable practices for us moving forward versus just being surface level with folks, thinking we can only do things in person when we do have the opportunity to do things from a virtual setting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make some great points there. And, Mike, I feel like from your chair, you have a really unique perspective from the league level. When all of this was happening, you were able to kind of, get a lot of information in. You were able to see what every team was doing and teams, from different leagues and things like that. And kind of, filter in all the best practices. Really interested to hear from you, what you feel like teams did well to continue to engage with members, over this time period.
Yeah, I think it was a time where it really showed the importance of relationships, and Brian touched on it a bit, but I think our retention teams, our service teams, like it showed how important that it's bigger than just a transactional thing, right? I think we saw teams and leaders like really lead with empathy, right? And really create touch points. And when we talk about this membership model of it being, more than the game, right? You're a part of this family and it's, 365 a year. And this was a time for us to kind of prove that, right? And prove that to be true. And I think a lot of teams really stepped up and not only, from a touch point perspective, but really tried to create things that solved problems for their members, right? Like I remember, people being shut in and we were quarantined and people were starved for just content and things to do, right? And so you saw teams really lean into a lot of unique virtual events, whether it was, Q&As with their players or front offices, or, having their team chef teach recipes. When schools were closed, it was, man, how can we, bring in our youth people and teach some fitness classes to get kids up moving, right? So we really tried to show, the value of this relationship by kind of being there when members needed us. And Brian mentioned just checking in with folks, right? So whether it was just, kind of understanding how they're doing, sending them, handwritten notes, sending them gift cards to be able to, just have some delivery come in. I think it was a chance for us to really show, membership is this two-way street. It's relationship, and those that really invest in those relationships, will be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, great points there. And now that we're, transitioning kind of out of what we hope to be a lot of protocols and, going through the pandemic here into, on the NBA side next year, we still had some NBA or some COVID protocols as we, went through last season, but hopefully we're transitioning out of all of those. Brian, I know this is really kind of your first year back to, going through a normal season as well. From your all perspective, what are one or two kind of key learnings or maybe even events or benefits that you feel like every team should consider? Because a lot of teams are looking to maybe make some changes or build out a new platform now that, what they had before the pandemic maybe isn't what we, realize that we need now as we go into the future. So Brian, let's start with you. Is there, one or two kind of key things that you think every team should look at when trying to build out or again, make some changes?
Yeah, I think it's just now taking a more concerted effort to start doing some of the virtual things. I know for us, like prior to, we never really incorporated that. It was never the thought. But now we know we can utilize some of our virtual platform to engage with folks, looking for that content. For us, thank goodness, like we've been able to kind of almost go back as business as usual and add on new things that we've done in the past or trying to introduce new things. For example, for us, what we did was take a segment of our members and for opening day, invite them out to a tailgate. The one thing we want to do is make it feel as normal as possible for our members, especially being at full capacity, over 43,000 tickets sold. So we're trying to make it as normal as possible. And those are some of the things we're going to continue to do. But also, I would say another thing, I don't know if we're going to talk about this hopefully later, but I know everyone's looking to integrate like partnerships and everything like that. That's another step that we've taken advantage of. We did it during the pandemic where we actually used Budweiser and dropped it off at people's front doors, just doing something different there. Yeah. But we also plan on getting some of our alcohol sponsors involved with some of the events we do here. So once again, I just think through the pandemic, yes, we were all challenged. And now coming out of it, it's like, okay, what did we learn from the last, let's call it 2 years that we can implement now? And what things in the past have we done prior to the pandemic can we continue to do? Kind of have them all be married together.
No, absolutely. I think it's a great point. And not just forgetting what we did before the pandemic that was successful for us and making sure we can try to bring some normalcy back. But Abbey would love to hear from your perspective.
Yes, I love this question. It's so funny because when I came from Cleveland where fulls, halves, partials, all of it was part of this membership program. It's celebrated. Coming to the Kings, they're very fulls focused. Fulls are like the big wins here. They didn't really celebrate or have half seasons or when it comes to like optionality, didn't really go all in on that. And so coming here with this different mindset, and then also understanding just the nature of our business and the world, and the fact that we are still in a pandemic, and no matter what your views are, people are either going to be comfortable or not comfortable. And you'll find a lot of the objectives of people wanting to buy and come and re-engage and get out is that maybe they're still not comfortable. And so I think having the optionality to buy either a full season, a half season, a partial, all of that should still be celebrated right now as we try to ease our way into it. And some markets, they're a little bit more sensitive than others, right? I think we can all agree there. But at the end of the day, there's still very polarizing views on this pandemic. We're still in it. And I am all for optionality and what people are comfortable with, and also what people can afford, because the pandemic really hit and affected a lot of people. And if someone is wanting to be engaged and wanting to support our team, especially, you know, here in Sacramento, and whatever their financial situation may be, I think we need to embrace that and appreciate that and find a way to make it work with them so that they can be a part of, you know, basketball and in sports.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I hear you loud and clear, and I agree. I think, you know, making sure that we're understanding what our fans are really need and are looking for is key as we, you know, continue to get back to whatever normal is going to be, you know, post pandemic. Mike, I'll let you add in any.
Yeah, to Abby's point, we have to also kind of relearn our fan base and our member base, right? And I think often, you know, we've led with instinct and not insights, and I think now we really are getting back to, you know, surveying, focus groups, member advisory councils to really understand, you know, what should it look like, what are the events that matter, where do they find value, and I think we can't just assume based on the spend level that they all want the same thing. You know, Abbey spends 20 grand, sits courtside, but she wants events and she doesn't care about gifts or, you know, parking, right? Where Brian might spend the same amount, sit in the same location, and is all about discounts to the merch shop, right? So kind of understanding that it can't just be a one size fits all. It can't just be one event for all, one benefit for all, really giving the customizable experience, a customizable benefit, a customizable experience based on what people want, not what we think they want.
Yeah, I love that. You know, we relied on instinct, not insights. I love that. I wrote that down there, Mike. I think that's a great piece of advice to as we go back through this. And, you know, one of the things I want to talk to you all about later is, you know, what type of insight we're getting from our members and how much, you know, that goes into planning what our platforms look like. But before we jump into that, we do have a question from the audience, and feel free to post any questions, and we'll try to get to them all. But it's a quick follow up to what we've been talking about here, and I'll open it up to anybody. But audience member wanted to know if we're still hosting, you know, these types of events, chef teaching a cooking class, virtual type of events, as we have transitioned back to fans in person. We here, you know, at the Hornets, I can say have, you know, and that's something that we will still lean into, you know, over the off season, especially as, you know, hopefully we have some access to coaches and players and things like that. It just has made it a great opportunity for us to even have, you know, more access than maybe we've had in the past, and makes it easier for, you know, that side of the business as well to interact with our fans. But I'll open that up to anybody on the panel want to comment on that.
I can jump in here. I'll say we as an organization are very much focused on trying to get back to this normalcy, what is normal. And so it's a very fine line between trying to not be, you know, tone deaf to how the market feels and what they're comfortable with, but also saying, you know, hey, we want to be back to business as usual. We want you to feel safe and comfortable. And so we are very much in a place of showcasing how our health and safety guidelines have changed, evolved, what we're doing to make people feel more comfortable. But it is very much focused on let's get back to normalcy. But the virtual piece we have here at the Kings gone away from because we think it maybe contradicts. But I think to what Mike was saying earlier is that it's kind of like just baby steps. Maybe we find that not a lot of people are still comfortable through our surveys and what we're hearing on the phones and whatnot. And then we maybe have to go back to doing virtual. But I think it's very much one message, not a mixed message. Hey, we're back to normal. We want you here. We want you to feel comfortable. But if we learn that we're not, then maybe we have to pivot and maybe go back to that virtual aspect.
And I think there's also, some Zoom fatigue, right, that we have
yeah.
to be mindful of.
Yep.
Sure.
So everything might not work as well. But I do think, Drew, to your point around access to players and coaches in front office, like this has been a great tool to get yeses and make it in a way where it's easy for a player to just hop on and to be able to connect with our members, or even now you're thinking behind the scenes things where maybe we can bring members into the post-game press conferences, right? So I think there's ways that it can be kind of an add-on to all of our in-person things and not just kind of an either or.
Absolutely. All right, perfect. Well, moving on here now is, everybody on this panel, has either been a part of building out a new membership platform or has really led the charge in building out a new membership platform as well. So for some teams that maybe are looking to just build a program from scratch, or coming out of the pandemic, are saying, hey, what we were doing before doesn't work anymore. Let's reimagine what our platform looks like. What advice can you give to teams as they look out to build a platform from scratch? And Abbey, I know you've done this in a couple of places, right? So I'll kick it over to you first to lead us off.
Another great question that I love to answer. So two pieces to answer the first part of things to know and be mindful of as you're looking to grow something from scratch. Very hard lesson that I learned back in my Cleveland days. But it was a great lesson, is that when I had first started and I was challenged by our senior leadership and executive team on building out this platform, I really didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't understand what true buy-in, organizational buy-in meant. And when you're trying to take something for years and all the market and people know is you have season ticket holders, and now you're trying to create and change all of the nomenclature, how everything is positioned and marketed and all that, having that organizational buy-in is crucial. And Tracy Merrick, who was the CMO at the time, was very adamant when I remember this meeting distinctly. She said, look, you can't just come into this meeting and say you want to change it from season ticket holder to Wine and Gold United and call it a day. She's like, this has to be a complete cultural shift, not only internally, which is very, very important, but also externally. And the buy-in so that everyone is speaking the same language. Everybody understands that it's a membership program. So the collaboration, the communication and buy-in, I know I've said that like 10 times now, is crucial so that everyone is rowing in the same direction. And everyone from all different areas of the business can support you in that mission when you're making that change. And then to answer the second part of kind of what I've learned coming out of the pandemic now, I think there's just staying within the premium hospitality area for concert shows and events. I feel there is some untapped opportunity with creating a membership platform. There's just some stuff that we're working on right now. I can't say too much about because it's in the very beginning stages. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there is so much opportunity outside of sport, but with the concert shows and events that are tagged along with obviously Kings basketball that we can really, as another revenue stream, tackle. And I'm very excited for what that's to look like.
Oh,
I don't know if I answered that question though, Drew.
You did. No, that's awesome. And I think that, can kind of get, minds moving on, as a challenge to, as we sit in our markets, right, understand what else is around us that we could be untapped potential for us to grow these platforms, and could be a very inexpensive way too for us to do that as well. Brian, you built out a fantastic program in Miami, and then I know you all just launched a new program, just a couple of years ago there in Detroit. So would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, very similar to Abbey. I think the buy-in's key, making sure everyone's talking the same language. Everyone's on board with what we're doing and the vision and the goal. So I think that's paramount. One thing I do want to hit on is definitely once you kind of get that buy-in, just understanding like the magnitude and all the possibilities. Like Abbey's talking about concerts and everything. I think there's also like untapped potential with those fans that say they can't afford, they're across the country, getting those folks involved. I think that's where someone like with the Detroit Tigers and the brand, the Old English D, like we have fans everywhere. Unfortunately, they all can't be here. So how do you engage those folks? How do you create those fans that come to 1 to 2 games? How do you get them to be upsold to a 28 game package, a 15 game package, a full season? And that's where I think the membership platform kind of starts to do your work. Basically, when you start putting in certain content that is interesting to them, you have your social media platforms, stuff like that, but how do you keep getting those folks engaged with your brand, where they're feeling more invested and maybe not even spending a dime, but at least they're part of your fan club, part of your membership platform. And I think those are some of the things that didn't understand the power of it when we got started in Miami. And then midway through, after we showed like, hey, this is a proven model that works for our season ticket holders, members, then we said, hey, let's go ahead and start implementing this to just a general fan and watching that fandom build and then having that be a revenue stream.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about untapped potential, right? And I think every team has a brand outside their city limits, right? And fans outside their city limits that is really, a huge opportunity in figuring out how to incorporate that into your platform. It can be different. You can do a lot of different things with that, whether it's just providing, exclusive content or some sort of swag or something like that. But there's a lot of opportunity there. That I think teams can continue to look at as they grow out platforms. Mike, or sorry, Abby, did you have a quick comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Mike. Yes, I always do.
Abby, fire away. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say too, coming out of the pandemic, I think a lot of teams do a really great job tapping into the youth and that community engagement and getting out within, youth sports and whatnot. And I think there's opportunity here with the Kings to get, because you have this membership program and you have a lot of them have kids, right? And it's understanding, I think, through the pandemic and how we were trying to interact and how this affected kids, right? And how through sport do we engage and keep them active? So I think that is another important piece of a membership that can somewhat tie in, if it's not already. And then I don't know if we're going to talk about this at some point, but sports betting, that is, and I'm from Vegas, so this is like, yay. I think that's going to be some way, somehow, through partnership and sports betting and a membership, it's all going to come into one. I'll leave it at that, hopefully.
Yeah, when I think about starting from scratch, I kind of go back to the like 5 pillars that we kind of push at the NBA. And Drew, Abbey, I'm sure you guys have heard this before. But one is it flawless and convenient, right? So I think about, how easy is it to buy just from the beginning, and still surprised at how many teams don't allow you to buy memberships on their website or online. Just my humble opinion, I think it's a miss. At this point, we can buy a car, we could buy a house all online without having to speak to someone, but there's still cases where we can't buy tickets to a game. So I think that's a miss there. Second pillar, ego enhancing, right? How is it elevated from the regular fan? Like, what are we doing to really show that separation, creating exclusivity for those that are members? Empowering, how do we show that, we're actively listening to members and really, acting to that feedback and showing them how we take the feedback to make changes. Communal, how are we kind of connecting people to like-minded supporters, right? Like we have these fan bases, we have these people that are, these irrational, loyal fans. Like, how can we bring them together? How can we better create that community? And then all encompassing, right? How do we connect them to every other thing that they're interested in, right? And I think, sports is at this unique intersection of culture and music and art and fashion. And how can we, take that music and everything that our members love and allow that to be within our platform. So, I would just keep those things in mind as you build it from scratch, because I think those fundamental elements can really help enhance what we do.
Yeah, no, I think those are all great points, Mike. And actually, we just got a question from the audience that kind of ties into what you what you were just talking about there with some different things around, social inclusion. How can we build that into our membership platforms? And, is it, something that we just kind of have, or is it, something that we actually do? And, I can say here in Charlotte, before I kick it around to the panel, we've obviously been a part of our community, doing different community events, even through the pandemic, where we normally, when it's safe, right, when we've been able to do it, have invited our members to do different community events with us, so that it is part of our platform. They can come and join, different members of our team and things like that, to take part in some of those initiatives that we have here with the organization. And I'll open it up to the panel if anybody has anything to build on or touch on with that as well.
Yeah, to that point, Drew, we definitely want to get we feel like the Tigers is part of the community, more so than anything. So when it does come to some of those initiatives, we definitely want to be a part of those and be out there as well. Some of those things have come from our communities team. I would like to personally get our members more involved as well, to give them that opportunity. We haven't crossed that bridge yet, but it is something definitely on my radar to see if we can kind of marry the two, because I think it's powerful.
Absolutely.
And there's also just a lot of research out there that shows that people want to spend money with companies that align to their values. And I think, teams do a ton of great stuff in the community, but often we don't, you went on to pat ourselves on the back, so we don't really promote it as much, right? So there's a ton of members that at times have no clue of all the different things that we're doing that probably align with things that they're passionate about as well. So Drew, great to hear that you guys invite them out. I think it's something we can do more of. I think there's something where we can align with stuff that our members are already doing from a community perspective. But I think there's a lot more we can do in that space for sure.
Absolutely. Great. I want to get even more granular here, maybe with you all for a second, and touch on, if somebody is, building out a platform or, making some changes, what do you all think are maybe 2 or 3 key benefits that, in your opinion, every team should have in their membership platform? I'll let anybody jump in here. Go ahead, Abby. I see you getting ready to take yourself off mute.
I was trying to let Brian go first here. So, okay. I have my notes here. I put tech-friendly engagement platforms.
Okay.
But I say that with a caveat, is that here's the thing, is obviously I work for the Kings. For those that don't know, this is the Kings pride themselves on technology and being at the forefront of all that. And I'm very proud to work here. But there is, I will say, the one-on-one contact, having that person, having that dedicated account manager that is there, that can text you, call you, email, whatever. So yes, I do believe that we have a great Royalty Pass, amazing platform here for our members. But I do think there always will need to be a service and retention team, a live person that can, always be there no matter what. If you are not, a tech expertise person, go ahead, Brian. You guys get me, right? Tech-friendly person.
Yes.
I do that, Abby. Just a couple things I think on my end when taking a look at this question would be, as Abby's alluding to, you're going to have that one-on-one interaction. I think it's customizing the content as well that you provide. I think that's a big one. Everyone buys tickets for a different reason. So they're part of your membership platform for one reason or another. They're part of your brand for a couple different things. So I know for us, what we do here is we segment those folks out and we make sure we deliver content to them. So we bucket those in family, corporate, a diehard, and social fans. And we just make sure we try to deliver things to them that we think would be interesting to them. At the same time, Mike said it earlier, get insight versus instincts. I think that's great because we want to hear from them. So hopefully you get them active into a survey so you understand what things matter to them. more so than just saying, yeah, buy for my family. That's great. I'm glad we know that. But there's probably another level deeper we can go to get some more insight on why they purchase for their family. And one generic one I just had was just thinking about it, just offerings, discounts, stuff like that, ways they can be part of your brand and be associated even deeper than just having just tickets.
Yeah, love that.
I'll add one more thing to that too, if you don't mind, is understanding too that a non-premium membership and a premium membership, I think definitely needs to be separated out. But I do think, and this is just what I've learned, is that the benefits for a like traditional member, the family movie nights, the, Disney on Ice tickets or whatever that case may be, is not necessarily the same as the clientele for premium, where all they care about is that you give me access to concerts, you're there 24/7 for me, and I want to have VIP, private entry, feel like stroking the ego a little bit more. But what I have found is that group, the premium group that is needing its own little way, in a great way, they still want to know about the family movie nights. They still want to know, just because I have kids. So even though I'm not interested in going, still tell me that it's happening. And if I can go, I can go. So I have learned that and found that quite interesting, even though their needs are very different.
And I think that's similar to what we do here as well with the Tigers, just knowing that we have our premium service team and we make sure they're incorporating every single thing that we do. But for our general fans, we make sure those are bucketed out to where certain folks only get invites to certain events. But to Abby's point, we make sure for the premium folks, they get a little bit of they get everything, not a little bit, they get everything.
Absolutely. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had access, right? That was kind of the big one, and it could show up in different forms, right? Access to players for meet and greets, access to, front office for chalk talks and things like that, access to special savings on the team store or F&B. I love, when we can even go further outside of our building and provide access to discounts with some of our partners and some of our, different organizations that we work with to give them added value there. So I just think like finding different ways to provide unique access and in different forms for different segments, I think is huge.
Absolutely. And we've touched on this a few times now, and it's about input from current members on how that can help shape your membership platform. A couple of years back, actually pre-pandemic, we were starting to look at rebranding our membership platform. So we started to do listening sessions pre-game with season ticket holders where we brought them in. We even did it on some off-game nights to get their thoughts on what they liked about our current platform, what they would like to see changed. And it was really impactful for us. But I know it's very different in every market. And we ended up rebranding our membership platform before this past season. We kind of put things on hold through the pandemic and then actually rebranded from to Hive Society this year. But those sessions really helped shape what we were doing with that. And I would love to hear from you all, how much input or what things or processes can we take to kind of get the input that we're looking for to help us kind of guide those changes that we might want to make. Brian, I'll let you lead off.
Sorry, run that back one more time. Sorry about that.
Yeah. What type of input or how much input, do you think is necessary from our current members as we look to make changes, and what types of things have you done or do you think a team should do to get that input from their members?
Yeah, I think their input is very important, just to make sure you are providing content that's making them come back in year out. Our job is to get these folks to renew. So if you're not listening and getting feedback from them, soliciting it, it's going to be hard because you're going to just be judging it based off of what you think they're interested in. I know I'll go to Miami real quick. We set up booths around the whole concourse, DMLA booths, where people were able to stop in the booth, get feedback. Now that primarily came from, it was for everyone that was at the ballpark that night, but we did get some great insight from the members that would pop in there and just to understand like what's not working for them, what is working for them, positive, negative, and everything in between. So we knew what they were looking for. They were looking for How can they differentiate themselves? How can they feel more exclusive? What benefits are offered to them? Just that being educated on the membership platform as a whole. So those are things we took. We started putting up events, for example, like a rookie event. We had a couple of people was like, hey, it's my first time having season tickets. I don't know how XYZ works. So what we did the following year, and I think towards the middle of that season as well, we put together a event for them to come out and learn and created stations around our ballpark. So without that information, I don't know if we would have, it would have had to been something we'd probably seen best practice from another team, or we may have just would have came up with that idea in the middle of the night. But getting that information is very important, so then you can implement it, and you'll get a lot. I think the surveys, the more open-ended they are, the better off it serves for us. But I think fans appreciate that, the ones who take their time and not rush through it. But any information you get from that to be able to implement it is super helpful.
Absolutely. Mike, any input from kind of where you sit working with, so many different teams?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of just soliciting feedback in many forms, right? And love a good focus group, love surveys, both after wins and losses, right? Because I think sometimes, after losses, everything's awful. After wins, everything's amazing, right? So you want to get a good sample size. I love kind of tapping into, Brian mentioned the different segments of fans they have, right? So I think it's important that you have representatives from each of your different segments so that you're hearing kind of a wide view. I think it should be young and old. It should be business and super fan. It should be, male and female, right? You should have a great variety so that you can have a full spectrum of what you should be doing. And I think it's cool to even like float things you're considering. Like, here's some things that we're planning for next year. Here's some things we're planning to include in renewals. What do you think about this? I think it's all valuable information. Even times where, you disagree. I think sometimes fans just want to be heard, and hey, we know that you really love this idea. Here's, we can't do that, but here's what we're planning to do. I think Sacramento is a great example. Abbey, probably right before you got there, they did a ton of surveying around some of their premium spaces and platforms, and kind of rolled out a, you spoke, we listened campaign to let the base know that not only do we solicit, but like we take your insights and we act on it, right? And here are all the things that are new thanks to your feedback. So I think that's an important piece of it, not just gathering the info, but really packaging it to show how you're acting on it.
Yeah, love that. Abbey, anything to add?
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, that has a nice little layup there for me. What I'll say to that point is, yes, the Sacramento Kings, actually before I started, did the You Spoke, We Listened, and one of the big takeaways was that one of our premium spaces, Lexus Lounge, was too crowded. It was not a good experience anymore, let alone a premium experience. So he's our manager of our premium service team, actually took the lead on helping create and build out this idea of a brand new space to help kind of separate the VIP row 1 clients from like our rows 2 and 3, creating a little bit more high end. Anyways, it's the row 1 club. It's beautiful. Glad I was able to be a part of that when I came in. But it would be a huge miss if I didn't mention this, is that your internal relationships are crucial, that they are positive. And the reason I say that is because the row 1 club would not have been possible if our general manager, Alex, did not help find the space, did not want to partner with us, did not want to help collaborate. It took a village to find the space, get it built and created. Like, it wasn't just one person, right? But the great relationships that we have internally helped us build something beautiful. But also, as much as we all love great feedback, there's going to be negative feedback. And so it's much easier. We work with legends who I love and think the world of. They're great people. To give that feedback, that harder feedback, when you have a good relationship, to say, hey, look, we just went on this trip and the suite holders are really not happy with X, Y, and Z. We have to change this, but they love all this other stuff. And, they're not taking it personal. They're saying, you're right, we see the opportunity, we need to be better. So it's much easier to have those more difficult conversations to grow and, again, be better.
Absolutely. I think, when you are ready to open yourself up to take feedback, from your members or internal or whatever, you have to be ready to take in the positive and the negative, and then also be willing to implement some changes, both from the positive feedback that you get and potentially that negative feedback you get as well, because both present a great opportunity for you to, make your platform or your program even better from both sides of the aisle there.
And you got to take your ego out of it too, because there may be something an idea you came up with specifically that the feedback says, I hate this. Why you guys do that?
Right.
So you got to be willing to, take it.
Absolutely. And then, even with focus groups, we're getting ready to do one here actually for our F&B experience, is that, and I get to moderate it. Yay. Is that make sure the people you're inviting are ones that are going to come and be respectful. They're going to add value, good and bad, but not, I would say you don't want to invite the person that is just going to come and just crap all over everything, or just tell you everything's rainbow and sunshine. Because, again, you don't get better. It's not productive. Be very cautious with focus groups in person. Yeah. Or even virtual.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Well, here's the technology question, Abby. So we're going to come right back to you. So want to touch on, what type of technology maybe you all are using to help your platforms, and as you build out new platforms, what technology, do you think that folks should really, maybe consider as they want to maybe make a pivot or build a platform from scratch? Abby, I know you talked about some of the technology that you're already using earlier.
So I will say, as I'm learning more about on our traditional side, this royalty pass, we rolled it out this past year, and we worked with Lava, and in the past they had credentials to redeem their member benefits and whatnot. Now it's all digital. It's through the Kings app. You get points. Another great piece of this, which I hope those that are listening that struggled with attendance, is that in order to try and incentivize attendance and coming to games, is that you come to X amount of games, you get a credit, an F&B credit of $5. So they love that, right? So I think that on our traditional side has been really received well. And then I have to definitely give a shout out to Suite Pro, because Tony, our manager of suites, works with them, and they've been a great partner of ours. And from booking suites and putting out deposits, it's been wonderful. Again, it's all going online, kings.com, for those that don't know Suite Pro. And I could keep going, Drew, but out of respect for the panel, I'll stop there.
No, I love it. And I think you'd be a great, resource for anybody listening.
Yes.
And I'm sure, Abby, you would be more than willing to schedule some time to talk to anybody if they reach out to you about some of the technology that you're using or want to use. I think you'd be a great resource for anyone listening, without a doubt.
Abbey has small ownership stake in those companies too.
Mike, any comments on the technology piece?
Yeah, I mean, totally love the platforms Abbey mentioned. The other ones I would say, things that provide kind of a seamless online experience, from the beginning, from a buying perspective, from the ability to customize the benefits that you want. We're seeing just a lot more frictionless tech platforms that come up that I think we should all think about pursuing. I think there's some efficiency technologies that help us, from an AI perspective, whether it's an automated FAQ, so when members have questions, you have, some of the ones that we get typical, we can have it be automated and then kind of feed the ones that are new to reps. But I think we should always be just exploring. I'm always willing to, take 30 minutes for a new vendor, because there's just so many smart people out there coming up with solves for the problems we face.
Absolutely. Brian, I'll let you have the last word on technology.
Yeah, it's a huge part, and I think there's certain pieces that we use that are the basics, like your texting platforms, your chat platforms. I think the one that I've seen a lot of value in is Fortress, where we were able to run a loyalty program from there, access control from there as well. They're not paying me for this spot, but I do like their services. And it was able to help us create that membership platform. So that was a big one for us. I don't know if I mentioned Live 5. That was the chat and texting platform, which has been, they've been good with us. And then I think one part of it is like just the sales component of it. When getting people to upgrade and move their seats. I know we use Belina. I know 3D Digital is another good one as well. So there are platforms to help you drive revenue, move your business forward, enhance your membership platform, or get you started. It's whatever's like that can be integrated with your current systems. I think that's a big part. So with any of the platforms that we bring on board, we want to make sure they're integrated well with our CRM system so we can get all that information and act real time. So if there is someone who comes to a game and we know they get a hot dog in the third inning, hey, maybe we can meet them before they get that hot dog and provide that for them. So the more you can get integrated with your technology across the whole ballpark stadium, the more efficient you'll be with your members.
Absolutely. I think that integration piece is absolutely critical to making sure that it's a seamless kind of transition from, to actually using the platform and taking what, the information that you may be getting from it and then applying it in real time as well. We've got about 10 minutes left here. So I want to transition to kind of the future of membership platforms and, from where we sit, what we see. And I'll ask a two-part question. I know in sales, you're never supposed to ask a two-part question, but I'll do it here anyway. But would love to hear from you all, in the current state of membership platforms, do you think that they are a sustainable long-term investment for teams to continue to make? And I would say, if yes, why do you think so? But if not, what do you think needs to change to ensure that the long-term success? Because these platforms have been around for a while now. Teams have been really using them effectively, but, would love to hear from your all's perspective, what you think that even more long-term, investment looks like for teams. Go ahead, Brian.
Just kicked off. Yeah. Cause I think it kind of ties into what we were just talking about in regards to the data and the information, but I 100% think they're around and they're here to stay. And especially if you're going to use the data, I think that's the key part, because these systems, like, they can take so much data in, it's ridiculous. It's the question is, how do we implement it? How do we use it? How do we use it to maybe bring new sponsors on? How do we do it to engage with members? How do we do it to create new fans? And as long as that process is being thought out, not just for the short term of, all right, cool, we have this membership platform or we have this reward platform, we're done. It's like, no, what is this going to drive? What revenue is this going to bring in? How are we going to stay engaged with just general fans? I think those are important key elements to it. So one, yes, I think they're going to be around. And why I think it's important is because all the data that comes with it and how it can stretch not only across, say, your team, but also for like Abbey, the entire building there. It's not just about the Kings. For us, I would say with Illich Sports Entertainment, yeah, it's great that it works for the Tigers. How does this work with the Red Wings? How does this work with Little Caesars Arena? How does this work with Fox Theater? How does this work with all of our different amphitheaters and our partnerships? That's where I think the more information you gather about your members and watch them move across your different properties, now you can make better decisions on how do you engage with them? How do you reach out? What's interesting to them? What kind of information do they want to be a part of? Does this person never come to a concert? Do they go to all the concerts? So I think it just opens up Pandora's box and gives us more information on who we're dealing with from a consumer standpoint.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Go ahead, Mike.
I definitely agree that it's here to stay. I think what's changing, though, is kind of what we prioritize. And, I think once upon a time, it was the full no matter what, right? And I think we're getting better at selling people what they want to buy. And I think we have to continue to think about that in that way, that people are even willing to pay a premium to get exactly what they want. And, for so long, we kind of force fed everyone into this one product and then wonder later why the show rates are low, why renewals and ticket utilization is low. So I think getting to a membership platform And I think what Abbey created in Cleveland is a model of a variety of spend level, a variety of commitment levels, tiered to those type of benefits. And I think, it being customizable, it being, kind of a sliding scale based on your level of commitment is where we're going to go. And I think we also just need to be mindful of the cost of sales and not, tie ourselves into things maybe in the down years that are hard to scale back, as our team gets better, as our demand gets higher. I think, whether it's pricing, whether it's over indexing on benefits that have a hard cost, we just have to be mindful of not just taking the short-term gain that really hurts us in the long term.
Absolutely. Abbey?
I agree with everything that Mike and Brian said. And I think, Brian, you used the word earlier, intentional. I think the more that we can be intentional about the membership platform benefits and added value and perks and whatnot, the better. Because there's nothing worse than, and sometimes this happens, you're having a conversation, you're like, are we just doing this to check a box?
Mm-hmm.
That's when it's like, okay, we shouldn't be doing that. So totally agree. The membership model will be around, I believe, forever, but it has to grow and continue to evolve. Because if it doesn't grow and continue to evolve, then it happens like what happened to Blockbuster, and then it goes away, and then Netflix comes in and does what it does. So, and I think that, again, the future of this meta world, which I'm learning more and more of it, but my goodness, what does that mean? Benefits like League Pass that we have access to now. And again, the sports betting. And so, yeah, it's all great stuff, but again, it's things that we're tapping into for the first time, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, I would say.
Yeah, I think you make a great point with what does the metaverse look like for a membership platform?
Metaverse. I keep saying meta world. Yeah. Sorry.
Same thing. We knew what you were talking about.
Okay, thanks.
That's a player, Abbey, meta world piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Sorry.
All right. Well, we're coming up on time here, but I want to get just final thoughts from everybody. 10 years from now, what do you think membership platforms will look like? And any final thoughts or pieces of advice, for our listeners today to take home to their home markets? Brian, you want to kick us off?
Sure thing. So I would say in the next 10 years, which is far out, but it's crazy. It's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah.
I just think more people being back to the word intentional with what they're doing, and people understand how to engage with folks when times are good, when times are bad, and find that happy balance across the board. I think we're going to be able to see what fans are really more engaged with as we kind of keep going down this road, as we take more data points, work with analytics to figure out, hey, this makes sense for this individual, and would be more strategic in regards to what our outreach is to certain folks. So I think we're going to have a lot more data to support some of the decisions that we make, to make sure we're maximizing all our resources across the board. So I would just leave everyone with, I think the more data we can get right now to make some decisions in regards to how we engage with folks, I think the better off you'll be. But I would say, don't let any opportunity pass without getting data on it. So, for example, don't host an event and not be able to pull that data later on, and make sure it's all housed in one area. So I think it's all about data at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Mike?
Yeah, so I see a world. So Brian mentioned, the Old English D, and I'm a huge Tigers fan, so it resonates with me of not being able to be in market to see games in person. So, I see a world 10 years from now, maybe even sooner, that the membership platform is kind of like twofold, where you have an in-market membership where you get to attend games, and you have this global membership that includes, kind of going into this direct to consumer world where my global membership is, and it's tied to just every way that I interact with the team I love. So to Abby's point, if I, make a bet, not that I bet personally, but if I make a bet, or if I watch on TV, if I buy a jersey, it's all tied to kind of my account as a member, and I build points and I'm connected to the team, and we can get into the blockchain where I'm able to display my loyalty, my fandom, and others can see just all the cool tokens that I've been able to redeem because of all the things that I've done globally. And maybe even a world where, I tune in, I throw on my goggles, and I am, behind home plate watching my Tigers play in my living room. So that's kind of where I see like this future of membership going, where we still have kind of our dedicated in-market, come to games, variety of packages you can choose from. And we have our team that engages with them. But then we also have, kind of our global network of members that is a communal thing, is something that we engage worldwide to really embrace that 99% of fans that won't walk through our doors, but love our teams. So I guess to close, I think as we think about it, I think it all revolves around engagement over just customer service. So customer service, I think, creates, loyalty. It creates, a fan, but I think strong engagement is what creates that irrational loyalty. It creates that lifelong fan, so that's what I would prioritize.
Absolutely. Abbey, final thoughts?
That's tough to follow up from Mike there. I guess I'll say, now more than ever, I think people are yearning for connection and building a membership platform or trying to elevate it and expand. Like, it's not going to be easy. I think if it's easy, then maybe we're probably not doing it right. Like, it's going to be challenging, but in a good way. But have fun with it. I can say personally, I was very blessed to be a part of the Cavs and the launching of the Wine and Gold United program. Not alone by any means, but I had so much growth personally and professionally throughout that process, and it was some of the best times. And I think everybody should be either working on building it out or trying to build it out, continuing to elevate it. And like I said, connection is key right now, and people want it. The market wants it.
I totally agree. I completely agree with you. Well, that's going to do it for our panel. Abbey, Brian, Mike, I can't thank you all enough for joining us today. I think you offered all some great insights and some advice for everybody who's listening and who will listen to the recorded version of this session. Some nuggets to take back to their markets and implement, into their membership platforms, whether they're getting ready to build one from scratch or pivot just a little bit. So can't thank you all enough for joining us and offering your expertise here today. And thanks to the National Sports Forum for allowing us to have this conversation today. But appreciate it again, and hope everybody has a great rest of their day.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you, Drew.
Thanks, Drew.
Bye, Mike. Bye, Brian.
See ya.